Greetings, dear one, and we are equal. There's some things I've been wanting to share with you, and I always assumed that you just knew. I took for granted that you knew these very simple, basic connections that you and I have shared many times. And because we have not discussed specifically what I'm about to share with you, is because I always assumed that it was just something you knew. And so now we're going to talk about it. How is it that stilling the mind works wonders, works calming, works energizing, works focusing, works enjoying, works trusting, works participating, and works in so many ways when one stills that busy mind? And so often people say, well, why bother? Well, the opposite, if you don't bother stilling your mind, is not pleasant, as you, no doubt, have already figured out. When the mind keeps saying, this is really fucked up, or this, or whatever your mind is saying, always commenting. And it doesn't have to be that way, because when we still the mind, and that's the ego that is not just supposed to be ruling the universe. We're supposed to be tuning into something much bigger, much more encompassing than just our puny little egos, which is our individuality. So as we still the mind and all those incessant wants and desires and, oh, I should be doing, and this is more fun, and that is like not what I want to do, to get still. What's the fun in that? When we have been shown that the opposite can happen, which is to be unhappy, to be constantly in a state of fear, to be unsure, to always be making really inappropriate decisions about big things, partners and occupations and friends. Those are big ones. So I'm sharing with you because I know you understand. And the basic thing that we need to address is, it's better to not think so much when one is trying to get calm and to be less anxious. It is better not to think, not to analyze, not to go over and over and over and over, and to still the mind, to go into what could be called super consciousness, not the ego consciousness, is the benefit. Just like we do when we pump iron, we go to the gym and we get strong because we've been doing it, and we keep going back, and we pick up the weight and we do it again, and we increase the weight, and we get ourselves comfortable with one step, and then we go into the next step until we get really, really good at whatever we decide we're going to do. So stilling the mind has so many benefits. It's as important in my life as strengthening my body, which I have made a science of with yogic and yogic principles applied to everything: bicycling, swimming, and hiking, and sailing, and adventuring. All sorts of ways you can do things with your body engaged. And then the mind, it has its purpose. Don't get me wrong, we bless our mental facilities, but if we are engaging in them all the time, there will be no real connection with the totality, which is the intellect, the spirit, and the psychology, the emotions, the environment, so many things. It's like this beautiful dance that's taking place, and we get to create the steps that we do in this dance, being very conscious, or they use the word mindful, being very aware of, for every action there's a reaction, and that what we put out will gain back, and if we don't do it, will be done to us, probably. That's the way the law of cause and effect always works, if you just observe things long enough. So I wanted to say these things, and forgive me if you already know everything and I'm just preaching to the choir, but I had to say what was on my mind about just basic stuff that you and I have never really vocalized, even though there's this body language thing going on, and acceptance, and oh yeah, recognition. But to use words, sacred words, the sound that we make to vocalize that we are speaking of being connected when we're talking about stilling the mind, being connected to something much, much, much higher, greater, bigger, more fulfilling, more eternal than we are. And if you know all this, then great. We can just move on to the next step. I love you, and I am always here with you. We are together. We are one love. Om Namah Shivaya.